Welcome back to Nerds Garage. I'm Suzanne, and this week we have a very interesting episode. We're going to talk about interactive storytelling and the future of gaming and media. We are super excited to have this writer, actor, and director whose show just came on, and I just watched it, and I have a million questions. Welcome, Josh Flanagan.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I was coming in with, I had it. We've had the second episode of Dead Little Roosters, and now I feel like you're my nemesis, and I want to pin you down for 1,000 questions. But no, we will go ahead and as if I wasn't 100% wrong.
I was gonna say, how'd you do? I'm guessing not so well week one guessing then.
Well, here's the thing. I kill it at mysteries and escape rooms, and I got it wrong.
It was hard. Week one is hard. I'll say that.
And, we worked as a family for a long time trying to decipher it, and we were very proud of it. But, all right, Dead Little Roosters, which is on roosterteeth.com. And I don't know how much of our Nerds Garage community blends with Rooster Teeth. So can you tell us a little bit of what the platform is of Rooster Teeth?
Sure. Rooster Teeth they've been around a long time. Been around, I think in April they'll celebrate 17 years or 18 years as a company. But they're kind of a strange mashup of influencers and scripted entertainment and animation and podcasts. It's kind of this strange new media amalgam that's both content-based, so there's a lot of shows, live action and animated, or gameplay, let's plays, that kind of stuff, but also personality driven, has a roster of faces that are familiar. It's kind of this just strange hodgepodge of new media. And they have their own streaming service too, which is where Dead Little Roosters is. They have an actual SVOD that's like a little mini Netflix too.
In our home at the Nerds Garage, I've been hearing Rooster Teeth since Red vs. Blue. My hubby and my son have been watching it. He was this middle school and he started watching. And I have to say, the first show that I watched from beginning fruition was 10 Little Roosters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm a mystery fan. So Agatha Christie, and then there were none. Are you a fan? Was that where that came from?
No, I hate it. No, I'm just kidding.
You're hysterical.
10 Little Roosters is a direct retelling or adaptation of And Then There Were None, which is what, Dead Little Roosters in a way is kind of a soft reboot as well, but it doesn't have the same, because 10 Little Roosters actually has the everyone is being blackmailed approach, right, that's in from And Then There Were None. No, I love murder mysteries. I loved, I'm a big Agatha Christie fan. I just actually watched a bunch of the BBC adaptations recently of ABC Murders, and they're 2-part Then There Were None.
I think I've watched all of them. Do you remember the first time that you read or saw And Then There Were None?
No, I don't know. It honestly, it's been more of a thing in recent years. I just love good mysteries in general, and not even things necessarily that are in and of themselves billed as mysteries. Just something with a good twist, or something that and even inside of a single scene that just surprises you and makes you feel either dumb for having not thought of it or smart because you did. I just love that feeling. So,
is that your go-to when you're watching? Mysteries?
Sometimes I think I don't know. I just love. Here's the thing. When I concepted this series, it actually comes from my love of building really insane scavenger hunts for people.
Oh my goodness. I used to do that too for all my son's Easters, and he hated them because they were educational. Tell me about yours.
No, my mom used to do them as well. And I like taking someone's interests and playing in that world. So I've done that for friends or significant others or whoever. And and just, if they're interested, whatever, say they're interested in like Mortal Kombat and Lord of the Rings and they love cats or something. So I'm like, okay, what plot can I weave off of those things and build into this like day-long adventure? And I always love weaving in, whatever technology is available, whether it's like scanning QR codes or doing just like having them. I got custom puzzles printed once, and if you put it all together and flipped it over, then you could read the words that would take you to the next place.
I've done the exact same thing.
Yeah, so I love that stuff, and it's very, I even, before escape rooms were a thing, I actually had a notebook full of escape rooms that I drew, and I couldn't ever figure out how to make it a business. I was like, I would love to make this thing, but I don't know how to what the business side of it is, because all of mine were like one person things. I had never thought of like, oh, you take a bunch of people and dump them in a room and they all kind of solve separate parts, which to me is not as narratively satisfying, but I get it.
I used to do birthday parties and Halloweens that if you came to the house, you knew you weren't here for 5 minutes to get candy. There was something at the end that you had to work your way to get the prize.
Right.
All right. So before we jump into your new show, I wanted to talk about day 5.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the polar opposite of all the roosters. It is a captivating, uncharted theme that was it was addicting. It was unpredictable, and even though the theme was a bit scary at times, because you started with people who well, I'll let you explain it, that they are the ones trying to save humanity. It is the people that you wouldn't expect to be the heroes of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about day 5?
Sure. So it's a apocalyptic thriller, I guess, technically, although it's a lot different than I think a lot of apocalyptic thrillers. So basically, one night in the middle of the night, sleep becomes lethal. And so everyone who's asleep in that moment dies. And anyone who survived that night will also die if they fall asleep. So they have to figure out basically what's going on as the days move on, and they become more and more sleep deprived and somewhat insane, some of them. So yeah, and it starts 5 days into that, which is why it's called day 5. So 5 sleepless days in, our story picks up. And yeah, as you kind of mentioned, it follows kind of just looking at that concept. We were like, well, who would be awake at 3 a.m? And it's everyone from people, kind of nocturnal people, to anyone who works night shifts, whether that's a pilot on an overnight flight, whether that's doctors, and then obviously, the main guys is basically just like a vagrant druggie and a kid that likes playing online games at night. So kind of their strange habits kind of save them that initial night, and so the heroes of the story become kind of these like outliers of society.
Yeah. Were you surprised at the response to that? Because from what I saw, that there was quite the cult following for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was happy that it was well received. I think that was something that I wanted to make sure that we really knocked out of the park, because, Rooster Teeth is known for comedy. This was their first dramatic thing, and they really went all in. It was 2 seasons of a dramatic television show. And I think there's a scenario there where they could have made something like that was okay, and people kind of would have given like the golf clap, because it was like, oh, first time out, good try. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted them to think, to have a genuinely compelling, entertaining series with characters they cared about, and that was funny and scary, and took people on a ride. And yeah, I think we stuck that landing. I'd say especially with season 2. I'm proud of season 1, but season 2 I think is really a complete journey. It's too bad that it ends where it does.
I feel like it was like something you would see on BBC America mysteries. I'd heard a rumor that Netflix might be picking it up.
Then you know more than me.
on my research. It's a shame that it ends there because it seems like there's at least 1 or 2 more chapters that we could go through.
Yeah, the initial, like where we were at, my hope was 4 to 5 seasons is kind of what we
Right,
targeted. We
right.
could have tied it with 3, which is kind of where we thought we were going to land at a certain point too. But no, I don't. I'd love it to come back, but realistically, at this point, it's been 4 years since we shot season 2. So I feel like we're getting to a point now where I'm just like,
The kids
I'm
are
not.
getting too old, and
Yeah, well, that kid
that's a bummer.
definitely also.
Is he a tween now, a teenager?
No, he's like 18.
Oh, no.
Walker's
Oh,
huge.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, from a writer's mind, you have the grace of comedy, and then to pull out this dystopic thriller. Tell me what your writing process is that you were able, because most people pick a lane, and you seem
Yeah.
to be filling all the lanes.
I try. Yeah. I don't know. I've never been, it's weird because it's sort of presented backwards, because my bread and butter as a writer is actually more serious, usually sci-fi or fantastic kind of storytelling. Like all the spec scripts I have are all in that realm. Like they're all, there's funny moments, there's comedic relief, but before Rooster Teeth, and even since, honestly, like I don't think I've written something that's a straight comedy, other than Dead Little Roosters. But I mean all the Little Roosters, I guess. So yeah, it's a weird. I don't know. I don't know how to straddle it. Like I like trying new stuff. I mean, even the Little Roosters thing isn't of itself. It isn't just a comedy. I mean, as you mentioned, like it's interactive. There's an entire game design component to it
That's what I want to talk about. It's active content, and we see that a little bit of Choose Your Own Adventure on like a Netflix did a couple shows like that.
But I loathe Choose Your Own Adventures, by the way. Can I just
say?
Yeah. I'm on principle. I find them gimmicky. I wish they were. I did have a show that kind of was built off of a similar framework to Choose Your Own Adventure that was in development last year. That got frozen because of COVID at a bigger studio, but it hopefully that comes back. Maybe as COVID lightens up, I can do it. But like in a normal Choose Your Own Adventure where it's just choose A or B, I just always found those really unfulfilling. So yeah.
Have you read any books when you were a kid of Choose Your Own Adventure?
Yeah,
probably it was the same. Young. Yeah.
No, I had them. It was the same problem though. It's like because it's kind of like, because they have to offer you so many options, they can never make any of them particularly compelling, right? Because like a great linear story told over 2 hours or the course of a novel, when it's great, it's usually because it's so detail oriented. And it's like the murder mysteries we're talking about, like Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie works because the setups and payoffs are so great, and it requires that tight linear form to do it. So when you start having like, I have to account for 15 endings, it's like, oh well, you're never gonna get there. There might be one of them that does, but yeah, it's tough.
Well, it's like I thought, okay, so there's Clue the movie, which in his time, I mean, it still holds up, but I feel like the Dead Little Roosters are this generation's Clue. Like my son, who kind of remembers it, but this is what he's gravitating to, that you are following the steps of like Agatha Christie. Clue gave us at the ending the alternate. Their gimmick at the movie theater was to show the alternate endings to get to go to the movie theater 4 different times. I only watched it on video, but then it's like, oh well, that's I don't like that, because you led me up to here, and now you're telling me it could have been a different way. So I absolutely agree with your scenario, and I think you're following it to the T. You're making it more of a game. There's a choice, and you're making the audience deduce and think. All right, so Dead Little Roosters, interactive whodunit, which comes with prizes, which I don't care about. I just want to win. And and it's every week on Fridays at 3:00. And co-written with Fiona Nova. Is that correct?
Yes. I wrote it alone, but she is show running and directing with me. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was your writing. You know what? You're writing. I was just saying this the other day. You remind me of Aaron Sorkin. I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even in the beginning of your writing with the 10 Little Roosters, it has, like, Aaron Sorkin writes in it's almost musical rhythm. And I feel like your writing is that way as well. And that's like the punches are down here instead of up here. So you're like, oh, I got to rewind because that was funny and I missed it. And I find that with the Dead Little Roosters.
Thanks. That's the first time anyone's compared me to Aaron Sorkin, but to which I appreciate. I'll absolutely take it. But I do think. I mean, I try to have a particular cadence with my dialogues. You know, like I think. I don't know. It's just fun to have dialogue that like zigzags all over the place. You know, and has stuff that like circles and comes back. And I don't know. Yeah, I put a lot of work into that. So thank you.
And you directed this as well, right?
Yes.
So these are not professional actors. They're semi-professional. How do you get them into knowing the feel of your cadence?
So one of the lessons kind of that I learned, and kind of from audience response, to be honest, is that when Rooster Teeth personalities are in stuff, generally the audience likes them to be some version of themselves, right? And even if they're playing a character, like there's a couple Achievement Hunter series like Hardcore Monopoly or Hardcore Mini Golf and things like that, like sometimes they'll come on, or when they come on live streams as characters, I think it's still understood in the audience's mind that like, oh, it's this person I like, but they're doing a bit. Like it's not, they're trying to fool me in being another character. And so what I kind of learned between doing 10 Little Roosters and 11 Little Roosters, the two previous seasons, was that people really liked people playing themselves in 10 Little Roosters, and then people not so much like themselves trying to convince them as characters in 11. And then also I think trying to make non-professional actors play a character also sometimes isn't the best, because the performance you get isn't the best. And so with Dead Little Roosters, that was the goal. We're like, we're going to take it back to these people are playing variants of themselves, and that's going to give them a lot more room to be comfortable and to give us the performances we want, and to improvise some as well, to add kind of their own personal flair to it. And I think that's I think it's the biggest thing in terms of performances you see in Dead Little Roosters, which I actually think has really good performances across the board.
Oh yeah, you definitely found the sweet spot. Everybody found their comfortable acting place. Everybody seems believable. It's not schlocky. I'm playing a character. Yeah, you definitely. This one is way up here, and I've watched them all.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes. Was this filmed during the quarantine and the lockdown?
Yes, it was shot in October, and the whole reason this kind of came together because Rooster Teeth was looking for content that they could film in quarantine that would still feel premium, and Fiona was pitching a murder mystery that I didn't know about, and I went to Barbara Dunkelman and was like, hey, I think this would be a really good time to bring Little Roosters back, because people need something to do in quarantine. Like they can watch an episode and then sleuth the week between. And then I learned Fiona was doing it, so I just teamed up with Fiona and we kind of merged our ideas together. And kind of the base premise was, as you know, because you've seen, it's a murder mystery that takes place after the murder. And because of that, all of the guests at this mansion have been quarantined in their individual rooms. So we wrote it from the ground up to be a show that was shootable in COVID. It's like, it's one actor, it's one room, it's minimal crew. We can do it. We did it all on one set. It was all set in Rooster Teeth in one building, and we designed the rooms a certain way where they could be kind of rotated through, which is why people have similar colored rooms. It's like a rotated through furniture.
Very clever.
Thanks. Yeah. So we built a show, and I mean, the hope is that if you watch this a year from now, you won't even think of it as this was made during COVID. Like I hope it doesn't feel like it. Hopefully, it feels like a style choice as opposed to a limitation.
Speaking of style choice, it's very stylish. I love the theme. Yes. It's almost like retro 60s.
Yeah, it's Wes Anderson was kind of our bread and butter, but we had really, I mean, the crew, Erica Slay, who did costumes, and Lindsay Lipscomb and Marcus Lepore, who did the sets, like they just killed it. I mean, it looks so much better than I ever imagined it would. So it's pretty fantastic.
All right, so I've watched all three, and I've got all three of them wrong, and I need to rethink. I just watched the latest one, and we had picked as a family. We thought, I don't know if it'd be spoilers if I say, well, it's already out.
It's already out, so.
Spoilers from last week. We picked Fiona and the Broken Record because the translation, I would revolve around the sun for you. And that was the red herring, wasn't it? Your red herrings
revolve around the sun was supposed to put you in the mindset of planets. That was supposed to be a clue the other way. The Broken Record was a red herring for sure. There's a couple items we put on the list that like obviously revolve, and like for people who just really were bad at the game, we literally put a revolver on the weapons list, and I told people not to do it. And I tweeted out, I was like, you can pick revolver, do not do it. It is not that easy, I promise. And you'd be surprised how many submissions I got that still chose revolver. So.
Oh, well, I still think we're doing okay for who's the murderer, but yeah, your lovely clue, and I'll fly it in here when I put this out.
That's the hardest thing to write on this. 11 didn't have a riddle, but 10 did. And so, yeah, those riddles are really tough to write because they have to be smart. People have to think they're smart once they understand.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. That's what I loved about the original. I think it was it 1939 when, and then There Were None came out.
Oh, really? The first adaptation?
Yeah. So what I want to talk to you about is to, I play test games and I review games for a living, and I want to talk about the transition of this. But before we do, I wanted to ask, do you play tabletop games?
Not with any consistency. I play, when I do, it's usually with James and Elise Willems of Funhouse. Like they'll get us some sort of, I don't know, they get us different, whatever, whether it's Jaws or Die Hard or like, I'm not sure which degree tabletop we're talking. Like I definitely, I see a lot. Okay. let me see if I recognize any. But I see the Ruby game back there too. So like I forget, like I played the whatever that haunted house game is.
The Haunted Mansion.
Where you can like somebody Mysterium. Becomes the monster at some point.
Oh, Betrayal on House Hill.
That sounds right. Yeah, Betrayal on House Hill. So like anytime I play them, it's with them. But I don't own many. I'm a simple man.
Well, obviously, we live in a world of pop culture and games, and actually, our son is going to school. He's just getting his master's for game design. So,
awesome!
Yeah, so we're big on. It's where my mind is right now because everything that he's writing about now is how to the design GDC, how to make a game. Yeah. And my immediate thought was how this could transfer seamlessly to a game, and I think obviously the simple thing would be like a Joking Hazard or $1 Million, but I think there's more to this game. I can give you my thoughts first.
Okay.
I think it could be like an RPG kind of game. The board being the map that you have of the house, and there's a game that we really like. It's called Alice is Missing, that just everybody gets a scenario and a persona, and then there's music and it's timed, and then a player will get a prompt. So the prompt, and that person decides where the story goes and who the killer is, and you get prompts every like 15 minutes. And I think something like this would fit perfectly for that, because you have all the characters and all the different scenarios, and you could have the base, and it would take them to, in essence, you're writing an episode is what you do by the end of the game.
I like it. We've been trying to figure out, sorry, my husky's down here bugging me.
Hello. Oh, baby.
Yeah, he's a big goofball. for a while, it's been a few years, but there was a time when Rooster Teeth was looking at, is there some board game version of this, or even is there a video game version of this that's, even if it's just like FMV video, kind of a point and click adventure version of a Little Roosters story. And I don't know, I've never quite well, I haven't spent that much time on it, to be honest. But no, I think that'd be super fun. I think the reason, just a quick little background, the reason I did 10 Little Roosters way back is because I, at the time, this was 2014, most web content, Netflix and them were obviously up and running, but it's not quite what it was, or what it is, but they had, most web stuff, YouTube stuff, was basically just shorter versions of TV shows. It was like, you went on YouTube, there were YouTube series, people were making them independently or whatever, but they were always like, it's basically a TV show, except it's 10 minutes. And with 10 Little Roosters, I was like, there must be more applications for this technology. Like it's web, like you have instant connectivity to the internet. You can link someone out immediately. You can pause, you can screen cap it, you can scrub it, you can rewind, you can immediately rewatch it. It's like, there's the functionality is so much different than just watching a traditional movie or TV show. So that's why I built it. I was like, I'm gonna make something that sorry, now my dog's being mischief, man. What are you doing? Wait, hold on. What do you got? What do you got? Oh, it's your bone. Okay, go ahead. You can eat it. This is just very loud. So yes, I mean, that was me looking at this medium and saying, how can I turn this medium on its ear, and make something that really feels fresh and original, kind of its own thing. And so that's, I think, would probably be my similar approach to a board game. It's like, is there some way we can look at the medium of board games and just do something really fascinating and new with it? Of course, now we're just, Dead Little Roosters is basically just a soft reboot of 10. So now I'm just repeating myself at this point. But
well, I think Dead Little Roosters, you've found your sweet spot, and you've really elevated tenfold from your first series.
Thanks.
And I do think that people are going to see what you made and copy it, jump off, because it is perfect for what it is right now, because people are at home, and this is going to be our future for at least another year. I mean, there's no more, you can't go to theater, we can't go see bands, let alone hardly going to dinner. We're looking for more than just, I think we're all tired, what have you binged? Oh, I've watched it all. We want something more to stimulate our brains. And I think you're the first out of the gate to present something innovative. And I thank you for that. And I do see that it says season 1, and I'm pretty excited about that.
I don't know if there will be more. I haven't had it. I've had very vague discussions on that, but usually they wait to see, how a season does. But I believe it's doing well. I've seen the metrics, and I think it's doing quite well, especially compared to.
Are you seeing what the people are voting? Are a lot of people getting it, or?
I saw. I don't think that many people got the first week, which is kind of nice because it means it's a good learning week. I mean, I just crunched the numbers, and so the first week, as you know, every week you guess the next victim and murder weapon, sort of like a predictive clue. But the first week only, you have to call out your guess for who you think the killer is and who you think the survivor is going to be.
Oh, is that just the first week? All right,
just
I hope we're right.
So that really becomes more like a tiebreaker sort of thing, but so that factors into the season. But there's only, out of the thousands and thousands of entries we've got, there's literally only 8 people who are 4 for 4 right now on all of those guesses. So it really is, I think, going to be, and I don't think those 8 will hold unless somebody's a savant. I feel like there's some wrong guesses. So yeah, it's pretty fun. It's actually really fun because this time, usually I have to wait until the end of a week to see people's guesses, and now we're using these Google forms this time that I can log in at any time and watch the guesses come in real time. So that actually kind of helps me to know what to tweet, because I like to try and tweet out and message out that to help counter steer people. Like if I see too many people going down the wrong thing, it's like I want people to get it.
Right.
So I'll
Right.
it's basically like I'm putting out live patches for the game and going, no, don't do this. Like this is wrong, without holding their hand completely. So it's fun.
You said something about what does the 8 mean? So
Mhm.
we're trying. Our theory is how many people work. Are there 8 people in Achievement Hunter?
I saw that. I saw a lot of that. That's the tricky thing too. Is I mean, I see, and some, there might be clues that are more like that, but I think what gets tricky in those is people. Here, I'll give you a hint. It's I think anytime it's vague like that, like it's probably not right. So if it's definitive, like
I'm
if
gonna
it was,
write that down.
yeah, like way back in the day when they were like exact, 6 main achievement hunters or however many reds or blues, or like if you can dial it in, it's a very specific, well-known number around Rooster Teeth, then maybe. But if you're having to like count stuff and whatever, then it's probably not. Versus like the moon phases, I think is a much simpler. You're like, oh yeah, that fits.
So clever. Now that I know it, I'm like, ugh, I'm good at this. How did I miss that?
It's hard. I mean, it's week one is always sort of like a learning. There's a learning curve to it. So like I said, most people got. I don't think 5% of people got this week right. So if that.
Well, we'll be voting soon. So what's next for you?
I have a bunch of stuff I'm trying to do this year. I had a bunch of projects I was trying to get off the ground last year, and obviously COVID hit, and the industry's log jammed basically. And I don't work as a full-time employee at Rooster Teeth anymore. I haven't been there for almost 2 years. I finished out Arizona Circle, the sketch series, and then I did Dead Little Roosters, most recent thing, and I've had a development deal with them for some time, where we've had a couple shows. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll do another Little Roosters. I'm certainly open to it, but hopefully things in the general industry start to clear up. I'm working on a really cool scripted narrative podcast right now that I'm going to pilot soon. So we're finishing the script on that. I have a really cool, like a lot of the audio people that worked on day 5 are working on it, who are very established industry audio like engineers and designers. So it's gonna be really cool. I think it's gonna be an audio podcast, again, sort of like not interactive, but in terms of how Little Roosters looks at a medium and sees what kind of the new different things you can do with it. We're doing something really similar with this podcast. I think we're going to do some things that haven't really been seen in terms of audio storytelling.
Storytelling?
Yeah. It's hard to say without giving you the premise, but once you get the premise, you'll go, oh, okay, yeah. So.
All right. It just pops into my head. I don't know if you've heard Angel of Vine.
No.
It is a podcast with who's the guy, the D&D guy, Joe Manganiello, and Alan Tudyk, Constance Zimmer. And it is a podcast told, and they did it at a table because it was like a table read that they recorded. It was a year ago, and they're ready to do season 2. But it is it's a storytelling of present day of they found the tapes of the father's tapes of an old detective. Then they take you back to the 60s of his tapes, listening to his tapes, which Joe Manganiello is the actor of, telling the story of this murder in LA. And even the commercials in it are the time of the 60s. It's very cool storytelling. It's almost like noir. I don't know. When you said that, I was thinking that's storytelling, interesting storytelling.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check it out. I haven't even heard of it, but that's a great cast, obviously, and that sounds fun.
That's just and also Misha from Supernatural. It's really cool. Arizona Circle. Where can we find that, and what is that about?
It is a sketch comedy series. It's on Rooster Teeth as well. It's free. It's not behind the paywall, but it is exclusive to the site. You can find some of the sketches on YouTube as well, similar to kind of how Comedy Central does, Key and Peele and whatever else. But that was a co-production basically with Rooster Teeth Live Action and Funhouse, and I created it with a couple of them and show ran it together with Elise Willems, and that came out or in 2021. It came out in 2019. I don't think a ton of people watched it, but I think it's pretty funny. So, yeah, it's good. And I think it has a really fun format too. Like we were looking at that and saying, how could we make a sketch show that had, an interesting, how it segues between the sketches. It's a little bit like Mr. Show. It's like Mr. Show meets Portlandia kind of in terms of its format. And then all the sketches are just kind of like depraved and strange. And it has some fun like through arcs too. So like if you watch the whole season, there are recurring sketches that I think have some really funny payoffs. But by the time you get to sketch 2 or 3 in the series.
Well, awesome. I'm lacking things to watch now because I've watched every mystery on BBC and PBS.
Nice.
And I'll put all the links to all your shows below.
There's a mystery sketch in Arizona Circle called Detective Rascal, who's played by Blaine Gibson in a fat suit. It's great. And it's one of my favorite sketches from the show because the mystery pieces of it actually work. Like when in each little sketch, it has a standalone mystery, but when you get to the end of the mystery, you go, oh yeah, especially the first one. You're like, yeah, that's actually like, that mystery lines up. And I think that's the main reason why it's funny is because it actually has a good mystery.
So you write, you direct, you act. What do you prefer?
Not acting. I'm not a very good actor, but I enjoy, I don't know, it's fun every once in a while to jump on camera. No, I much prefer, I think in terms of in the moment, directing is the most fun. Writing is good, but it's just so masochistic that you spend 90% of the time just loathing yourself trying to think of good stuff and
absolutely
getting feedback on everything and stuff. So like the process of writing is quite miserable, but I really enjoy it.
What is your process?
I mean, I do a lot of research. I read a lot of stuff and I'll watch a lot of stuff. And I put things together. Like it kind of looks like a puzzle in my head, actually. So like I'll chip away at characters, or I'll chip away at plot or twists, or I'll jump around. When I was writing Dead Little Roosters, for instance, like the biggest thing to get in place was the riddle, but I had to write the riddle. It was hard to write episodes not knowing what the deaths were yet. So and even then I kind of like came back and forth with it. So like weirdly, for instance, in the riddle, the death that's in episode 5, who I think is what's my math?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bold of will, but muddled mind. The 5th was felled by a double bind.
Yeah. So the death in episode 5 was the first one I wrote. Because I just knew I figured out the setups, I figured out the payoffs, I knew how they'd be split. And so my process can be a bit archaic. Like I don't write necessarily linearly start to finish.
Neither.
But so in terms of this show, I wrote I think the 5th death and then the 6th death were the first 2 I figured out.
Well, we think we have the last death figured out, FYI.
Oh, good. I think a lot of people might.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
My son watches it all. I've actually probably only watched your shows on Rooster Teeth. Oh, and nice. Ruby. We're fans of Ruby, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us, especially after the 2nd episode. I know you got to jump on the social media and quell some issues or questions.
Yeah, I'm curious how now that I posted the explanation just now for week 2, or for week 1, so I'll be curious how many people.
I know. I have to say, I came in thinking you were my nemesis. I was all nervous before, but then I was really mad at you.
This is pretty normal. I can't tell you how many times. It's less an issue with 11 because 11 had such like you could get to the direct answer, have no question. Yeah. But 10 was similar to this, where you don't necessarily know till the next episode airs, and got many messages about how people's answers were more right than the right ones. And I'm like, okay, sure.
You're not the writer. Just hush.
Yeah.
I have to say you found the sweet spot. This is beautiful. And I really think Dead Little Roosters could be BBC America, PBS, and I hope to see it make it into a game because I want to play it. Thank you for joining us today. Dead Little Roosters every Friday at 3:00. I want to thank you, Josh Flanagan, for joining us. And
thanks for having me.
Everybody, I know this was a little different. Thank you for watching Nerds Garage, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. I'm Suzanne. Bye.